Thanks for joining us. This is live with Miami's Community News. Our guest today is Binie Klein, life coach. And here we are, 2022 is upon us, and lots of people come up with their new resolutions.
Yes.
Here are all the 20 things I'm going to do. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to lose some weight. I'm going to go back to school. All right, I'm going to exercise. I'm going to take better care of the kids and my parents and everything. And what happens 6 weeks later?
80% of people fail on these goals. Never look at them again, bail. Maybe they think about them a month or two later, or they think about them next December and they feel bad they never got to them.
So we know come January, February, the gyms are filled.
Yes.
And come April, they're empty.
Yes.
All right. So what's a person to do? Here we go. We have this significant event, a new year, all right? And people this particular year, I think, are a lot more hopeful than last year and the year before. So what causes us to think about those goals and what we want, and what can we do about it so that we don't lie to ourselves and come up with this long list, knowing, if you're over the age of 20, knowing what might happen?
Yeah. So I want to talk about that. But before we even get there, I want to say, for all the people listening who might be thinking, why should I even set goals? I know every single year I set my goals and they never work. So maybe I should just go with the flow this year, not set a goal, kind of just see what happens, hope for a better year than last year. And I understand why people think that way, because when you look at the research, 80% of people fail on their goals by February. So you set your goal, you make your laundry list of those 20 things, you go to the gym a couple times, then you never show up after that. So the reason why you still might want to set goals is because if you want a year that's different than last year, you need a plan. You need to make sure you have a goal. If you're happy to just repeat what you did last year, make the same amount of money, have the same type of relationships, exercise the same amount of ways, feel the same amount of stress levels, then you don't need a goal. But most people like myself, the people that I work with, we want something different. We want to do something we've never done before. And that's why you want to make sure you set a goal and to listen in here and to gain some tips and tools to follow through.
So you said something on just a plan, because that's what a lot of us think. We can come up with this. Okay, and what's your first couple steps?
Yeah.
Right. And then if the plan's not there, we sort of make it up as we go along. We know what happens 45 days later. We'll pretend like I never did that.
Exactly.
So let's say somebody's at home right now. They go, okay, got a new year, 32 years old. What about this year? What am I going to do? What are some of the steps that they could take by themselves without hiring somebody to assist them, and without people being judgmental about them, so they can at least try to put together the first couple steps?
Yeah. So I want to talk about the first most important step. And these are the couple of things to avoid before you even get to the first step. And then we'll talk about what that first step is. So make sure to avoid, I think the reasons why people ghost their goals, the top reason is, number one, a lot of people set goals based on comparing themselves to others. So maybe someone in your family, or you're looking at people in your industry that are making a lot more money than you, or seem to be a lot more successful than you. So you think, I want to be more like them. So I'm going to aim to double or triple my income this year with no plan, right? So avoid setting goals comparing yourself to others. Avoid setting goals based on the trends. So I saw this a lot last year, that a lot of people, for example, bought a Peloton without even thinking about if they would actually want it. And their goal for the year was to use the Peloton, and they just equated exercise with the Peloton. So then they weren't using the Peloton because they didn't like the Peloton, and then they weren't exercising either. That was a big one that I saw with a couple of my clients. So you just set a goal based on trends, right? This year, everybody's doing this, so I'm just going to do that without even thinking about if that's something that you want. Another reason why people fail on their goals is because people set their goals from a place of shame or guilt. So let's say you're a parent and you're feeling guilty about how you were this year as a parent. So then all of a sudden this year you decide, and I saw this with one of my clients, she said, I'm going to take my kids out of preschool one day a week to be with them. And it wasn't really a practical goal. And she was doing it when I pressed her, she was doing it because she didn't feel like a good enough parent. So when you're setting goals, you want to come from this neutral place and not from a place of oh God, I really didn't make a lot of money last year. I wasn't a good mom or dad last year. Now I'm going to set this whole laundry list with no plan to follow through. And then lastly, people don't follow through because they don't have a plan. They don't even decide what their goal is. Maybe their goal is something vague like exercise, make more money, connect more to my partner, no plan, no actual goal. And they don't follow through. So those are to start with why people don't follow through.
There's a running club, Miami Footworks has a running club. They have a running and walking classes, and they have a plan 5 days a week. All right, and these are, you can, and they have a whole plan where you can pick the days that work for you, and they have the speed at which you want to go. So if you're an experienced runner, they're going to teach how to do that and what group you're going to be with. All right. And then conversely, if you're a walker, it's great. This is the walk. And they have that plan there. And if you do the plan, you're going to succeed, unless, of course, you change your mind. But if you do the plan, you're not changing your mind.
Yeah.
And so sometimes people get confused and they put the steps in there before they get to the bigger picture. We have in the back a typewriter that is about 70 years old, and we have a paymaster, which was, it's like you would emboss your checks. You push these buttons, you go like that. When I look at it, I go, in the days, those were perfect. They did everything you wanted to do. But it was sort of like that black and white copying machine that was perfect. But all of a sudden you said, I want to do 11 by 17 in color. What we realized, you weren't going to try to make that machine do color when it doesn't do it. Wells Fargo has got this great saying, is 100 plus years ago, they said, we need faster horses to move money. And somebody said, no, we need to move money faster. Let's figure out how to do that. And that's part of your plan, which is, here's what you think you want. All right. And perhaps it's not that. So what's your experience when people say they want something where that's really not it? That's just one of the things that'll help them get to some other place.
Such a good question. And this is the trick, I believe, to setting goals. And this is where every single person needs to start. So before you get tempted and just create that laundry list, right? I think I want to exercise more. I think I want to do this. I think I want to do that. And you start to get sidetracked. You first start with setting a vision. So let's say you're doing this now in December. I want everybody to think about, if I were to wake up on December 31st, 2022, and I were to be living a life that was more ideal, more fulfilling, I had more success, I felt more calm. Think about those words. What would be different in my life? And then to just jot down on a paper and to really think about the different areas of your life. So first think about your career. If you have a career or business, what would be different in my career if things felt more ideal, fulfilling, successful? What would be different in my relationship? If I'm in a relationship, maybe you would be in a relationship. What would be different in my connection with my children, in my friendships, in how I spend my time, in how I feel in my body, exercise, and how I partake in my community and in my finances? Go through all the different areas of your life and go to December 31st, 2022, the end of the year. If I were to wake up and be proud of my year and be like, wow, I did it this year. This was the year that I wanted. Where would you be? What would be different? So you go to the end.
So that is different than saying, I want to go to the gym.
Very different.
Because that's a step to get wherever that is. If you were going to summarize what people want, right? And you've been doing this for a while, what do a lot of people want in their lives?
Yeah. So what a lot of people want in their lives is they want to feel successful. So that looks different to everybody, right? You want to make money, you want to provide for your family, you want to feel fulfilled in your career, but not at the expense of their personal life. We want connection and we want to feel present and we want to actually enjoy our life. And if we're only creating success in our business or a career and making lots of money, we still feel unfulfilled because we're not fueled and connected in our personal life. So we all want the blend of both. We want connection, we want fulfillment, we want success, and we want to enjoy our day-to-day. We don't want to be running from thing to thing. And that's often when I work with a client, the first thing I ask is, what's your vision? If in 6 months from now, because I work with my clients typically for 6 months, if in 6 months from now your life felt more ideal, and right away, they can name the gaps. Right away, they're like, oh, this, and this would change. And then we figure out what those steps are. So first you want to go to the end result. It's kind of like you're going on a road trip. You got to decide where you're going. You got to set the GPS. I'm going to Orlando. And then you need step-by-step instructions. It's not enough to just say, I'm going to Orlando. How are you getting here?
So we know, I was online not too long ago, that people spend more time planning vacations than they do the next year because we're on this autopilot. We're just going to keep going. But there have been a lot of changes in people's thinking in the last couple of years. And so many people were affected by, we call it a pandemic. We don't use the other word in case there's a problem. There are 140,000 plus children that their caregivers are gone. All right. You have the medical arena that is totally fried. All right. No matter how committed people are, at some point they become overwhelmed. And we see that. We know that healthcare workers are retiring early, resigning, moving. That certainly these last years have put a lot of stress on them. And they made some decisions. Say, I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
because they say, next year, I don't want to be doing that. So are there some careers that you see people are more likely to go into if they are fed up with another one?
So it's interesting because I have actually had a few clients very lately switch careers. And what I see as being the trend is careers or businesses that are flexible. What people want more than ever is that balance. They don't want a career that's going to be rigid. And that means they can never be home with their partner. They can never be home with their children. They can never have children. People want a career or a business that they can control. So either they're starting their own thing, which is what I'm seeing a lot of. And a lot of my clients are keeping their businesses they're keeping their careers and starting their own businesses on the side, or they're getting involved in a career that has that flexibility so that they have time for themselves and to fuel themselves. Because like what you said, the most important thing is actually taking care of ourselves. We think that when we make more money or when our kids get older, that's when we'll take care of ourselves. That's when we'll pick up a hobby. That's when we'll get more sleep. But the opposite is true because we're the driver. So going back to the example of the road trip, imagine the driver got no sleep the night before and is not taken care of. There's going to be a lot of stops along the way. He's going to drive slow. It's going to be quite bumpy, right? So that's in life. When we set goals, but then we're not taking care of ourselves, we are the driver. We are the most important part of everything around us. So when we take care of ourselves, we're able to be more successful in our career. We're able to give more to our family. So what I see now as being people's biggest work is taking care of ourselves and realizing that that's not selfish and that needs to come first or in conjunction with other priorities. And B, finding careers that are more meaningful and more flexible to accommodate the other things.
And certainly we've seen that recently. And for 80 years, employers have been building boxes called buildings, and they've been building offices, and that's where you're going to be and you're going to be. And then all of a sudden, in the last 10 years, people started outsourcing a lot of things. I mean, we see that frequently. And as I explained to some of our people here, as we all struggle through less people being in the building, I said, our voicemail is not in the building. Our Google is not in the building. All right. Our website is not in the building. Right. I go, right. And I go, and we have all these other functions that are not here. They were in other places. And certainly in the last 10 years, people have been shipping a lot of work overseas to do that. When that first came up, I was against it. No, local. But you know what? We got to get the work done.
Yeah.
We got to make a profit.
Exactly.
So we can keep making, and having this move forward. So lots of folks wind up with many people in school. They pick the career that they think, or the education background they think that they want. And there are a lot of motivating factors on that. A lot of parental conversation in their heads. And they go, after the second year, they go, you know what? I really don't want to do this. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So that happens a lot. And what I find is that a lot of people, they're doing one thing. They got a degree, they worked really hard, they got somewhere, and then they realize that it's not actually what they thought it would be. So a lot of people, out of fear, because our brain wants to keep us safe, our brain's job is to keep us safe, which is safe for our brains is not making change. Our brain will often tell us, just, it's not worth it. You already spent so much time. You already put in all the money to get that degree. You became a nurse. You became a doctor. Just stick it out. But what I'm seeing with some of my clients is they're thinking ahead and they're thinking, wow, I have another 30 or 40 years to work. Either I can stay here in the job that's not fulfilling me, or I could be brave and make a change and then actually live the life that I want. And that is the more courageous move, and it's the more difficult move. So what happens is that when you're thinking about what you're doing now and you don't love it, think about, actually, the more responsible thing is to do the thing that I feel called to do, and then to really figure out what that thing is. But I think a lot of times we don't have to jump from one to the other. Like, even when I realized that I wanted to be a life coach, I kept the job that I had before for a little bit as a cushion, where I was getting a salary from there as I moved on to the next thing. And I see that with some of my clients. One of my clients is a nurse, and then she wanted to be a graphic designer. So as she was getting some clients, she stayed part-time as a nurse as she was doing the next thing. But what she had to work through is a lot of the judgment, where people said, oh, wow, you went through all this schooling to become a nurse. Why would you give it up? And then she had to realize, like, you know what? Now I have better information. I know what I want out of my life, and I'm not going to give that up just because of the 2 years of schooling that I put in.
So after I finished college, I became a registered nurse, by the way, back then, a long time ago. So I'm sitting in the first graduate class, and the professor says, okay, why don't you write down what you want? And it was a yellow legal pad back then. I wrote down, want to run community newspapers. I scratched out run, effectively run. The next, own.
Ooh.
I said, I just did 4 years, which took me 5. And that was for them. my parents, this is for me. Is this what you want to do? And I finished the class. All right. I go, that's it. I'm done. If you're lucky in your life, you get a moment of clarity. And we've interviewed dozens and dozens of people, and so many successful people have figured out what they want from 2 to 3 to 5 years of age, right? We see that. We have doctors said, I knew when I was 2 years old I wanted to be a doctor. We interviewed a young girl, Lauren Page. When she was in second grade, she told her parents, there's kids that are illiterate. In the 8 years that followed, she has given away 310,000 children's books. So when she was that young, and you're looking at it, and she saw that. When we look at famous actors, and Michael Jackson, he was this big, you knew he was destined. And when you see little kids that are great boxers or great runners or great ministers or rabbis, you just know that that's in their soul.
Yeah.
When did you recognize, Binie Klein, that this is what you wanted to do?
So I think for myself, I always recognized that I loved working with people. I loved helping people. And I started to notice what I got complimented on. I always got complimented on my talking skills. Like, oh, wow, you spoke so eloquently. You really know how to explain things. You're great with people. You're great with people who are older than you. So I always noticed that and stored it in the back of my head. And I always said, I want to do something that helps people, and I want to do something with people. So those were the two things that were in the back of my head. But I did not know I wanted to be a life coach, because honestly, I didn't really know what a life coach was. But then after I went to school, I really started looking for what that thing was for me. And I decided that I want to be able to look back on my life when I'm 80, 90, 100 and say, I really help people directly, because a lot of jobs help people, but I really wanted to help people one-to-one. And from then I was on the search, and I decided I'm not just going to jump into that next thing that could give me a paycheck to provide for my family. I want to do something. This is what I help my clients with. Find the thing that you're good at, that fuels you, and that pays you what you want to get paid.
So when you were searching for your soul and you found that, you didn't say, well, I'm going to go do that because that's going to do it. You could, as you said, there are a lot of things where you're helping people.
Exactly.
You get a social worker, a doctor, a candlestick maker,
Exactly.
or somebody making cars or whatever it happens to be. So you found that. And when people are talking with you, sometimes it must be difficult for them to open up and to bear, perhaps for the first time, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go do this. So when you have that awareness that they just, for the first time, that they're really expressing it from a highly emotional point, what is that like for them and for you?
So when they finally have that point of clarity and they realize, like, oh, wow, I really want to be doing something completely different, they very often get emotional and get really excited, but then it's quickly followed by fear, because that's our brain, right? Staying away from anything that's new or scary. So it's my job to validate them, acknowledge the fear. Of course you're scared. This is something new. This is something toward your future. And then to remind them that they're here, they're with me because they want to work toward the future that they want and not stay stuck in the present based on the past that they had. So I remind them of that, and we sit with the fear and we talk through the fear. What's your fear? That your parents are going to say X, that you're never going to make money doing Y. And we talk about that, and I help them challenge those thoughts, because challenging those thoughts are the only way that they're going to be able to take action and move forward. So that's a lot of what we do.
And how do you do that, being non-judgmental, where they can really express themselves?
So it's never about my judgment. I always mention, oh, you said your parents are going to hate you. Is that actually true? Just ask the question.
So we know sometimes we say these spontaneous things and it's just like floating around, and we spit that out. And we know it's not true, but maybe that's the little fear in the background. There's a class that my wife and I took years ago called Marriage Encounter. And one of the exercises, you sit knee to knee, and the first thing you say is, I want to tell you something. You tell your wife, and the wife or husband, and the wife goes, this is what I heard you say. Is that what you meant? No, that's not what I said. And you repeat it. And they say, this is what I heard. Is that what you said? Yes. Is that what you meant? And going through this, sometimes it was 20 or 30 minutes to get to the core.
Yeah.
All right. And at the end of this exercise, forgive me, Susan, all right, which was 25 years ago, do you love me? That's what this whole conversation was about. Right. And it was an amazing moment to have that awareness that it was driving. That was the deep thing, driving that whole conversation from the beginning.
Yes.
And so often we say these things like, my parents are going to hate me. Well, they still love me when. Right.
Yeah.
And of course they will.
And whenever we're focused on my parents are going to hate me or this person's going to think that, there's always a part of us that believes it, that thinks there's something wrong with what we're doing. So whenever I notice my clients talking a lot about, well, my husband's going to say this or people are going to say that, I always ask, what do you think about what you're going to do? That always reveals something interesting, because once we can really clear up how you're thinking and feeling about it, then it's so much easier to talk about the judgment. I always say people are going to judge. If you want to live an extraordinary life, if you want to live a life where you're creating success, where you're being the true you, judgment is going to be there. It's like pebbles on the floor. Are you going to pick it up and let them affect you? Or are you going to learn to manage your mind and keep moving on?
And when we think about and when people get elected to office, whether it's the PTA or the Boy Scouts or public office, 50% of the people don't want you there.
Yeah.
They don't want you. Maybe they don't want somebody else, but they don't want you.
I believe you're on the right track when people don't like you. It means you're putting yourself out there. If I'm hibernating, then, then everybody likes me because nobody knows who I am.
So one of the things too, December 2 years ago, when this pandemic was headed our way, I said, okay, what are we going to do so we can help these business people stay connected? What are we going to do? And we sat here and we said, okay, we're going to accelerate the amount of interviews like this that we do. And I said, can't we just go to sleep and wake up, in 2 months from now, Winkle with a big beard? I said, no. I said, I want to see what I'm going to do. We need to do this and we need to do it well. Mm-hmm. We were able to connect so many chambers of commerce with people that were there and provide that connection. And that I've been doing this my entire life in the communication field. My father was in radio and TV just like this many years ago. This is probably the most fulfilled I've ever been. And I was the last one in the world that I thought that I would do this, right? And it was the thing that I didn't want to do, right? I said, we have to do this, right? And now that I've challenged myself, you need to do it. The guys with the cameras used to chase me around, literally chase me around the office. Michael, come here. I'll do it tomorrow. No, come today and let's do this. And it was a 20-year-old that last sued me. Just sit down, all right?
Wow.
And what a difference that we have helped make in the community and had connected so many people we were honored to be able to do that. We know that there are a lot of people that are having some health issues now, mostly with their stability, all right? I mean, the mental health it's cracking, all right? So when you're talking with some of your clients and they're getting ready to shift, all right, what are some of the things that they say to you that you want to help them stay centered on what they're doing or what they want to do?
So it's an interesting question. I think this ties right into New Year's goals. I want to bring it back there. Is I always help them take their goals, right? After they make their vision and they figure out where those gaps are and they have goals and they want to shift into those goals. We don't go right into those goals. We talk about what their priorities are in life, because what happens is that even when we create a vision, and let's say we have a list of like 5 goals that we want to work on this year, and they're directly in line with the vision, we wake up December 31st, 2022. Those are the changes that are going to make us feel most fulfilled. We have those 5 changes, but then what's most important for us to experience? Because what happens is that sometimes we have those goals, but then why we get really overwhelmed and we don't do them is because we're not looking at what's most important for us in our life. So the first thing we do is we create that vision and we create those goals, but then we look at, okay, so when we think about your life and your work, what's most important for you? So let's say for me, my number one most important thing is my health, because I believe that if I'm not taking care of my health, I can't take care of my family and I can't take care of my business. I can't be a life coach. So I help my clients figure out what is most important to you in your life and in your work. And then how do you make sure that your day-to-day schedule is first and foremost honoring those priorities and then filling in the gaps with those goals.
And you help them do that.
I help them do that.
And you have graphs, pens, magic markers? What do you do?
So great question. What we do is 2 things, depending on the type of client that they are, is one is sometimes we'll create like a minute-to-minute schedule. So if exercise is really important to you, where are you fitting that in? And we make a schedule on an Excel sheet. We look at it together and we make sure that the priorities are in there. That's number 1. But number 2, a lot of times it's just asking them, walk me through a typical day. And sometimes we see that they actually are filling in their day with most of their priorities. Because what happens is that a lot of us, particularly women, but I see it with my male clients as well, is we're doing everything, so we're never getting ahead. So we're always busy tidying up the house, doing the laundry, answering emails. So we're always in the busyness. We're never getting ahead. So we never have time for exercise. We never have time for date night. We never have time to grow our business because we're busy. So that's what I do with my clients. We look at their schedule and we say, what are you actually spending your time with? And what's more important to you, laundry or date night? Exercise or tidying the house? And then we work on getting more efficient and then not feeling guilty about what we're not doing.
So a friend of mine who is very wealthy says to me one day after we're talking, he says, how much time do you spend on maintenance on your property? You know, I looked at him, I said, I'm going to take care of most of it. I went out, I got 3 air conditioners the next day because the air conditioners were taking so much of our time because they were old and they needed to be replaced. They were running around trying to get that last 6 months out of them. And so that time that we were spending on that busy stuff, all of a sudden, oh, look at this extra time. So how do you and your clients stay motivated from week to week? And let's say it's D-Day, it's 45 days out, and typically 80% are gone. How do you keep them in that moving forward?
So number one is making sure that they are always taking care of themselves and prioritizing themselves, because when we're taking care of ourselves, we are more energized and more fueled. So number one, sleep, eating, meals, exercise, all of those things, downtime, making sure that they're getting those no matter how busy they are. If they have children, if they have a busy business, they're taking care of themselves. That's one. Number two is we make sure that their schedule is aligned with their priorities. So let's say even like you spoke about in your work, even in a business, we could be doing so many things that aren't making us money, right? We could be answering emails, creating beautiful templates. So we think about your work, we think about your life and what is most important for you to experience. And then when your schedule is reflecting your priorities and your goals, you are so much more motivated because every second you're doing the things that are most important to you. You're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your family, you're making money, you're having an impact. So when we create a schedule that's makes sense, that you have time to focus, that you have time to grow, but time for yourself as well, when we have that balance, that's when I find we're most motivated and fueled.
So when does it go from, I'm not sure if I should be talking with you, to let's give it a shot, and they have a lot of trepidation? When do they start smiling? How long does it typically take?
So the way it works is that people typically go to my website, binieklein.com. They book a call if they're interested in coaching. It's a free call. That's where we talk about exactly this. We go through their goals. I tell them the plan that it would take for them to be successful. We talk about working together. I help them make a decision from a neutral place and teach them how to make decisions that are best for them and their future. After they decide, if they do say yes, I always say it's super normal for them to feel scared. Why are we scared? Because they're choosing themselves and their future over their past, and our brains want to keep us in the past. And then I would say after about a session or two, once they say yes, they invest the time, they invest the investment, they feel so much more calm. And after that first session, they see the light, because we talk about the vision in the first session, and we talk about the goals that they'll start achieving, and we even get started right then. And then usually even after about 4 weeks, I see they start to see a lot of results in their personal and professional life. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was even worried to do this, because it starts paying off.
So sometimes this may be only the first, second, or third time that somebody's really focused on the tomorrows and how to get there. Because we're all looking for a path. Right? And we frequently hear, we don't see a path to this. Well, you can certainly help create a path for them and say, this is the path that you've created, and there it is over there, and these are some of your stops. Now, we know lots of times along the path, right, there's lots of distractions. Beautiful tree over here. There's a bench over here, the little puppy over here. As you're going down this path, no, you got to keep going. So you're there to help them realize the things that they want to get in their lives.
Exactly. Help them realize that and help them get there in the most simple and effective way. And not only that, to give them tools that after the 6 months that we work together, they can use to create their next level of goals, right? Because as human beings, we're always growing, we're always evolving. I help you break through that place where you just feel too scared to make a change. You know, it's so much easier to sit on the couch. It's so much easier to not exercise. So I help you break through that place, and then you're able to make decisions for your future for the rest of your life.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up here, but I want you to imagine you're going to be talking to an 18-year-old who's wondering about what their life, what the future holds for them, and talk for a moment. You can look right into the camera and talk to them. All right?
To an 18-year-old.
To an 18-year-old. Which camera? This one over here? That one right over there.
Yeah.
You're on.
So I would say this honestly to my 18-year-old self. I would turn to my 18-year-old self. If you're unsure what you want to do next, I would say the most important thing is to just try different things. Don't be scared to fail. Don't be scared to try something new, and really think about and start to imagine the life that you want. Imagine being 30, 40, 50 years old. If you could imagine a life where you felt fulfilled, where you felt successful, where things felt ideal, what could you imagine having? And really just start to vision. And from that place of vision, try different things. Don't be scared to try and fail, and you will succeed.
Terrific. Binie Klein. Folks, need some inspiration? Check out BinieKlein.com. Feel free to call her. Glad to talk to you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you for having me.
And again, this is Live with Miami's Community News. Thank you. And Junior behind the keyboard over there, thank you. Folks, again, Live with Miami Community News. Have a great day.
Thank you. Oh, I forgot.